The night sky above Seoul lit up with colors nobody had ever seen before. Dr. Minyu Park stood on the roof of the science building, watching the alien ships descend. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. His hands shook as he held his tablet, recording everything. "They're really here," whispered Captain beside him. She was a soldier, trained for combat, but even she looked nervous. Her hand rested on her weapon, though she knew it would be useless against technology so advanced. The ships landed in the designated area outside the city. Within hours, Earth's leaders had gathered in the emergency council chamber. President sat at the head of the table, her face calm but her eyes sharp. She had been president for only 2 years, and now she faced humanity's biggest challenge. The aliens called themselves. Their ambassador walked into the human council chamber the next morning. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her skin had a faint silver shimmer and her eyes were larger, more expressive. She was tall and moved with perfect grace. Behind her came 6 other females, all carrying themselves with the same elegant confidence. "People of Earth," began, her voice clear and strong, "we come in peace but also in desperation." Minyu sat in the corner, brought in as Earth's lead expert on alien biology. He studied carefully, noting every detail. They had sent all their biological data ahead of time, and he had spent 3 days studying it. What he learned troubled him deeply. Explained their situation. The Empire was dying. For thousands of years, they had relied on genetic modification and cloning. They had made themselves smarter, stronger, and longer-lived. But they had made a terrible mistake. Their males could no longer produce children. The last natural birth had happened 50 years ago. "We have tried everything," said, her voice breaking slightly. "Every science, every technology, but life cannot be forced. It must be given." President leaned forward. "What exactly are you asking from us?" "Your DNA," replied. "Human genetic material is unique in the galaxy. You adapt, you survive, you thrive. Your emotions make you stronger, not weaker. We have studied you from afar, and we believe that human DNA could save our species." The room erupted in angry voices. Some council members shouted about invasion, about humanity being used. Others demanded the aliens leave immediately. Stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. "How do we know you won't just take what you want? You have better weapons, better ships. Why are you asking?" Looked directly at, respect in her alien eyes. "Because of the sacred protocols, our oldest and most important laws, we cannot take life without permission. We cannot force genetic bonds. We cannot clone or steal what must be given freely. To break these laws would make us no better than dead." Minyu spoke up from his corner. "I've read your biological data. There's something you're not telling us." All eyes turned to him. Nodded slowly. "You are correct, Dr. Park. There is more. We discovered something about human DNA that we did not expect. It changes based on emotional bonds. When humans form deep connections with others, their genetic material becomes stronger, more adaptable. We cannot simply extract your DNA in a laboratory. It must be given through natural bonding between partners who genuinely care for each other." The room fell silent. President stared at for a long moment. "You're asking us to fall in love with you." "We are asking for a chance," said quietly. "A chance to know you, to understand you, to build something real together. If connections form naturally, if some of your people choose to bond with some of our people, then perhaps both our species can survive. But it must be real. There can be no shortcuts." Over the next week, Minyu worked day and night studying biology. What he discovered amazed him. They weren't lying. Their own genetic tests proved that forced extraction produced weak, unstable DNA. But when they tested samples from humans in loving relationships, the genetic material was incredibly strong and viable. "It's like the DNA knows," he told one evening as they reviewed the data together. "Love and trust actually change our genetic structure at a molecular level. It's beautiful and terrifying." Frowned. "How do we know this isn't some elaborate trick?" We don't, Minyu admitted. But the science doesn't lie. If they wanted to take by force, they would have already done it. They have weapons that could destroy Earth in hours. Instead, they're sitting in their ships, waiting for our answer. President called for a global vote. Every human on Earth had a say. The debate raged for weeks. Finally, the results came in. 62% voted yes to a trial program. Earth would allow a small group to come and live among humans for 1 year. No force, no pressure, just cultural exchange. The night before they arrived, Minyu stood on his apartment balcony, looking at the stars. His phone buzzed. It was a message from the ship. Had personally requested him to lead the human side of the research program. A scientist named would be his counterpart. "Are you scared?" asked, appearing beside him. She had become his friend during the long weeks of preparation. Terrified, Minyu admitted. What if this goes wrong? What if they're manipulating us? What if they're not? Countered. What if this is real? What if we're about to witness the beginning of something incredible? Minyu looked at her. You've changed your mind about them. I met yesterday, said. Really talked to her, just the two of us. She told me about her daughter who will never have children of her own. She cried, Minyu. Real tears. Either they're the best actors in the galaxy or they're genuinely desperate and scared just like us. The next morning, 12 females stepped off their transport ships and onto Earth soil. They carried nothing but small bags of personal items. They wore simple clothes, not uniforms. They looked vulnerable and hopeful. Minyu stood in the receiving line waiting to meet. When she approached, she bowed in the human style, then offered her hand. Dr. Park, she said softly, thank you for giving us this chance. Her hand was warm in his. Her eyes met his, and he saw real fear there, real hope. In that moment, Minyu realized that everything was about to change. For better or worse, humanity and they were now bound together by one simple truth. There are no shortcuts to trust, and no shortcuts to the bonds that create life itself. The experiment had begun. The first month was awkward for everyone. The 12 females were split into different cities across Earth. Each was paired with human hosts who had volunteered for the program. Minyu watched it all unfold from his laboratory, tracking every interaction through reports and video calls. Moved into an apartment next to his. She came to the lab every morning at exactly 6 o'clock, never a minute late or early. She worked with perfect efficiency, never wasting a single movement. It drove Minyu crazy at first. He was used to chaos, to messy desks and late nights fueled by coffee and random inspiration. Why do you drink that? Asked one morning, watching him gulp down his third cup of coffee. It helps me think, Minyu explained. But it raises your heart rate and makes you anxious. That cannot be helpful for thinking. Minyu laughed. You wouldn't understand, it's a human thing. Looked hurt just for a moment, before her face returned to its usual calm mask. Minyu felt bad immediately, but didn't know how to apologize. Meanwhile, in Island, a farmer named was having his own struggles. His partner followed him around the farm asking endless questions. Why did he plant seeds by hand when machines could do it faster? Why did he talk to the plants? Why did he wake up so early when the work could wait? Because I love it, finally said, exhausted from explaining. I don't farm because it's efficient. I farm because it makes me happy. Stared at him. Happy, but happiness is not a logical goal. Efficiency is logical. Success is logical. Then maybe logic isn't everything, replied, turning back to his work. In Seoul, an artist named was painting while his partner watched. Her name was, and she couldn't understand why he kept making mistakes and starting over. The canvas is ruined now, she pointed out. You should start with a new one. The mistakes are part of the art, said, mixing his paints. They teach me what not to do. They make the final piece more meaningful. That is wasteful, said flatly. Captain spent most of her time with Commander, the leader of the security team. They were the only two who seemed to understand each other. Both were warriors, both valued discipline and honor. They trained together every morning, sparring with practice weapons. Your fighting style is chaotic, observed after landed a surprise hit. Your style is predictable, shot back with a grin. Almost smiled. Perhaps we can learn from each other. The breakthrough came in the second month. Was working in his greenhouse when walked in, looking excited. Well, as excited as a could look. I planted seeds, she announced. Looked at the neat, perfect rows. You used the machine. No, by hand like you do. She held up her dirt-covered hands. It was inefficient. It took 3 times longer, but I felt something. When the soil moved through my fingers, when I placed each seed carefully, I felt. Peace, suggested gently. Yes, said, wonder in her voice. Is that what you feel? Smiled and walked over to her. Every single day. He showed her how to brush the dirt from her hands properly, and for the first time laughed. It was a small sound, almost uncertain, but it was real. Back in the lab, Minyu noticed something strange. He was running daily scans on all the volunteers, both human and. His latest genetic sample showed unusual activity. His DNA was responding, adapting, becoming more compatible with non-human biology. This shouldn't be possible, Minyu muttered, running the test again. Looked over his shoulder. What did you find? His DNA is changing. Not much, but enough to measure. It started after he saved from that accident last week. 3 weeks earlier, had nearly been crushed by a falling beam in the greenhouse. Had pushed her out of the way, taking the hit himself. He'd been in the hospital for 2 days with a broken arm. Had stayed by his bedside the entire time, something no one expected from a logical. The emotional response triggered a genetic response, said slowly. We theorized this, but to see it actually happen. It means your people were right, Minyu said. Genuine emotional bonds actually change us at a cellular level. You can't fake this. You can't force it. It has to be real. But not everyone was happy about the progress. On Earth, a group called Humanity First began organizing protests. They stood outside the science building with signs reading "Humans for Humans" and "Our DNA, Our Choice." They're afraid, explained Tu as they watched the protesters from the window. They think your people will take advantage of us. Fear is logical, replied. We are strangers, trust must be earned. Is that what you're doing, earning our trust? Looked at directly. I hope so. You have become important to me, Captain. Your friendship is something I value. Felt her face grow warm. I value yours too. The real trouble started when news arrived from a faction called the Pure Line had attempted to overthrow the council. They believed the Earth mission was taking too long. They wanted to use force to take what they needed. The coup failed, but the Pure Line's leader, a radical named, escaped. Intelligence suggested he was heading to Earth. President called an emergency meeting. Minyu and all attended. If this comes here, what will he do? Asked. His face was grim. He will try to kidnap humans and force genetic extraction. He believes our survival justifies any method. Then we stop him, said firmly. We increase security on all volunteers. But this proves what the protesters fear, one council member said. Some of your people will use force. Some of yours protest against peaceful cooperation, countered. Every species has extremists. The question is, do we let them win? That night Minyu and worked late in the lab. The tension in the air was thick. Finally spoke. I am sorry, she said quietly. For what? For the danger my people have brought to yours. Minyu looked at her tired face, saw the genuine sorrow there. You're not responsible for what he does. But I am. His desperation comes from the same place as mine. The difference is only in how we respond to it. That difference matters, Minyu said. He reached out and touched her hand. It was the first time he'd initiated physical contact. You chose the hard way, the right way. That takes courage. eyes widened, her hand trembled slightly under his. "Your genetic markers just shifted," she whispered. "I can sense it. Your body just responded to caring about you," Minyu finished. "Yeah, I guess it did." They stared at each other in the quiet lab. Outside, the protesters chanted. Somewhere in space, an extremist plotted violence. But in that moment, two scientists from different worlds realized that something real was growing between them. The next day, security was doubled, and worked together to create protection protocols, and stayed on the farm, but armed guards watched the perimeter. Continued painting, but learned to fight, training with team. 1 week later, arrived on Earth with 6 armed followers. They struck fast, targeting a volunteer named Lee who lived alone in the city. But they hadn't counted on his partner, being trained in combat. They also hadn't counted on the bond that had formed between them. When the attackers burst in, fought them off while called for help. He was injured, taking a blade meant for her. By the time's team arrived, 3 attackers were unconscious and was fleeing. "Why did you do that?" asked in the hospital, her voice breaking. "You could have been killed." "Because I care about you," said simply. "Because you matter to me." Touched his face gently. "You matter to me too, more than I thought possible." News of the attack spread across both worlds. Humans saw a defending her human partner, saw a human willing to die to protect one of them. Public opinion shifted dramatically. 6 months passed, and Earth began to feel different. Humans and walked the streets together now, and most people no longer stared. The 12 females had become part of the communities where they lived, but the real changes were happening in quieter, more personal ways. Woke up every morning to find already in the fields. She loved farming now, though she did it in her own unique way. She combined efficiency with human intuition, creating systems that produced more food with less waste. But more than that, she smiled now. Real smiles that reached her eyes. "I never understood happiness before," she told one evening as they watched the sunset over the crops. "On my world, we measure success and achievement. But this feeling, watching something grow because we cared for it, this is different." Took her hand. It felt natural now, this simple gesture. "That's because you're not just growing plants anymore. You're growing a life, a real life." Leaned her head on his shoulder. 6 months ago, she would have called such a gesture illogical and wasteful of time. Now, she understood it was the point of time itself. In Seoul's art had transformed. His partner had finally understood what he was trying to teach her. Art wasn't about perfection. It was about expression, about capturing feeling in form. Together, they created installations that combined human emotion with mathematical precision. Their work was being shown in galleries across 3 continents. "I never knew beauty could be calculated," said, studying their latest piece. "I never knew calculations could be beautiful," replied, a smile playing at her lips. They had grown close, spending 16 hours a day working side by side. Found himself thinking about her constantly. The way she tilted her head when confused. The way her eyes lit up when she solved a problem. He was falling in love, and it terrified him. Recovered from his injuries, but the experience changed him. Barely left his side during his recovery. She learned to make human food, even though she found most of it too strongly flavored. She watched human entertainment with him, trying to understand why humans cried at sad movies. "It doesn't make sense," she said after watching a romantic film. "Why do humans enjoy feeling sad?" "Because it reminds us we're alive," explained. "Because feeling something, even sadness, is better than feeling nothing." Was quiet for a long time. "I am feeling things I never felt before. They are uncomfortable and confusing, but you are right, it is better than feeling nothing." In the laboratory, Minyu and had become inseparable. They worked together perfectly now, each understanding the other's thought process. But it was more than just professional chemistry. They had started having lunch together, then dinner. They talked about everything: science, philosophy, their childhoods, their dreams. What was it like growing up on your world? Minyu asked one night over Chinese food. Thought carefully before answering. Efficient, clean, ordered. Everyone had their role, their purpose, but looking back now it feels empty. We lived, but we didn't really experience life. And now I understand what we lost when we chose perfection over passion. She looked at him directly. You have taught me that, Minyu. You are chaotic and messy and wonderfully, beautifully alive. Minyu felt his heart race. I know, she said softly. I feel it too. I have run the scans on myself. My biology is changing, adapting to desire compatibility with you. It is not forced. It is not artificial. It is real and it terrifies me. Why does it terrify you? Because if this fails, if your people reject us, if the extremists win, I will have to leave. And leaving you would cause me pain. I did not know could feel such pain. Minyu reached across the table and took both her hands. Then we make sure it doesn't fail. But making sure was harder than it sounded. The pure line had gone quiet after his failed attack, which made everyone nervous, and worked together constantly, trying to predict the next move. They will try again, said during one of their morning training sessions. Is fanatic. He believes he is saving our species. By destroying what makes us worth saving, replied, blocking strike. Both our species. Paused mid-fight. You include my people in that. Of course, we're not that different, you know. We both want to protect those we care about. We both believe in honor. We both stopped, realizing what she was about to say. Both what? Stepped closer. Both have feelings we're not sure how to handle, finished quietly. They stood facing each other in the training room, weapons forgotten, reached out and gently touched his face. I never expected this. Friendship, perhaps. Respect, certainly. But this feeling like my chest is tight when you are in danger, like I want to spend every moment learning more about you. This is not logical. Welcome to being human, said with a shaky laugh. We specialize in illogical feelings. I do not want to be logical anymore, whispered, and leaned in to kiss her. President watched all these developments with mixed feelings. The program was working better than anyone had dared hope. Real bonds were forming. The genetic compatibility rates were beyond anything the scientists had predicted, but the pressure was mounting from both sides. The Humanity First movement had grown more aggressive. They vandalized buildings where lived. They sent death threats. On the pure line was gaining support among desperate citizens who saw the slow approach as too little, too late. Minyu called an emergency meeting with all the human volunteers and their partners. 12 humans and 12 gathered in a secure conference room. I have discovered something, Minyu began. The genetic compatibility between bonded pairs is not just good, it's extraordinary. Offspring from these unions would be stronger, smarter, and healthier than either species alone. But here's the crucial part. Forced extraction shows zero viability. It has to be voluntary. It has to be based on real emotional bonds. There are no shortcuts. How do we prove this to everyone? Asked, his hand holdings. We don't just prove it scientifically, said, standing up. We prove it personally. We show both our peoples that what we have built here is real. She's right, added. We need to broadcast our experiences, show them the truth. Over the next week, they recorded everything, and talked about their life on the farm, and demonstrated their artistic collaboration, and explained how they had learned to protect each other. Even and, who were intensely private, shared their story of mutual respect turning into something deeper. Minyu and presented their scientific findings. They showed brain scans, genetic markers, and compatibility rates. They proved mathematically and emotionally that shortcuts would never work. The broadcast went out to both Earth and the billions watched as 12 humans and 12 to what they had found together. It wasn't just about genetic material. It was about building something new, something neither species could create alone. The response was overwhelming. On Earth, Support for the program jumped to 80%. People saw the genuine affection, the real partnerships. These weren't humans being used. These were people finding connection across the stars. On the reaction was more complex. Many were moved by what they saw, but the pure line saw it as proof of weakness. They released a statement calling the bonded, corrupted by human emotion and traitors to racial purity. Watching from the ship still orbiting Earth felt her blood run cold. She knew that language. It was the language of genocide, of final solutions. The pure line wasn't planning another kidnapping attempt. They were planning something much worse. She immediately contacted President and Captain. "We need to evacuate the volunteers, all of them, now." "What did you learn?" demanded. "The pure line is planning a mass abduction. They have built a secret facility where they plan to hold humans and extract genetic material by force. They believe if they can create just one viable child, it will prove their method works." "But you said forced extraction doesn't work," said. "It doesn't, but they are fanatics. They will keep trying, keep hurting people until they accept the truth or die trying." Minyu refused to evacuate. "If we run, they win. We need to expose them, shut them down." "It's too dangerous," pleaded. "Please, Minyu." "She is right," added, her arm protectively around. "We cannot risk human lives." But the volunteers all agreed with Minyu. They had come too far to run now. They would stay together and face whatever came. The invitation came from the High Council. They wanted human representatives to visit there and testify before the entire government. It was an unprecedented honor and an obvious trap. Everyone knew the pure line would make their move during the visit. President chose her delegation carefully. Minyu as the chief scientist, as military representative, and 3 volunteers who had formed the strongest bonds. And their partners would accompany them, of course. This could be the end of everything, told them before they left. Or it could be the beginning of something incredible. I trust you to know the difference. The journey took 3 days, even with their faster-than-light technology. During the trip, Minyu and Barely left their quarters. They knew this might be their last time together. They talked about everything and nothing, memorizing each other's faces, voices, habits. "If something goes wrong," said, "I want you to know that these months with you have been the best of my life. You taught me how to feel, really feel. Whatever happens, I will carry that with me." "Nothing is going wrong," Minyu said firmly, pulling her close. "We're going to prove them wrong, and then we're going to build a future together." When they arrived at the humans were stunned by what they saw. The cities were beautiful, all gleaming towers and perfect gardens, but they were also eerily empty. They saw old, middle-aged, but no children, no laughter in the parks, no schools, no playgrounds. "This is what dying looks like," whispered two. "Not violent, not dramatic, just fading away." Gripped his hand tightly. "This is why we cannot fail." The council chamber was enormous, able to hold thousands. The High Council sat at the center, led by Matriarch, an ancient who had seen her species rise to greatness and now watched it die. The chamber was packed with who had come to hear the humans speak. Minyu went first. He presented his scientific findings, showing conclusively that forced genetic extraction produced only failed results. The DNA degraded immediately, unable to create viable life. But DNA given through genuine emotional bonding was powerful, adaptable, perfect for creating new life. "The bond must be real," he concluded. "Not forced, not faked, not rushed. Real, that is the only way forward." The chamber was silent. Then Matriarch spoke. "We have seen your data, Dr. Park, but data is not life. We need to understand what these bonds mean. Will the human volunteers speak?" Stood up first. He was a simple farmer not used to public speaking, but his voice was clear and strong. "I am nobody special," he began. "I grow vegetables on a small island. Before came, my life was simple and predictable. I woke up, I farmed, I slept. I was content, but I was not truly alive. He looked at. She frustrated me at first. She questioned everything. She didn't understand why I did things the way I did. But slowly she learned to see the world through my eyes, and I learned to see it through hers. We made each other better. Stood beside him. He taught me about joy, she said, about finding happiness in small things, about the value of patience and care. I was efficient before I met him. Now I am alive, and I would rather be alive than efficient. Spoke next, describing his artistic journey with, art is about taking two things that don't belong together and making them into something beautiful. That's what I did. We took human passion and precision and created something neither of us could make alone. That's not weakness. That's strength. Kept his testimony short. He was an engineer, a man of action, not words. I almost died protecting. She would have done the same for me. When you love someone, really love them, you don't calculate the risks. You don't measure the costs. You just act. That's what makes us human. And maybe that's what you need to remember about being. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some were moved by the testimonies. Others remained skeptical. But before the debate could continue, alarms blared throughout the building. The Pure Line had made their move. Armed extremists stormed the council chamber from 3 entrances. They moved with military precision, clearly having planned this for months. Led them, his face twisted with fanatic determination. "Enough talk," he shouted. "We take what we need now." Reacted instantly, pushing behind cover, and her security team engaged the attackers. Laser fire filled the chamber. People screamed and ran for exits. "Protect the humans," Matriarch commanded. "They are our guests." But the Pure Line had planned for this. They targeted the human volunteers specifically, shoved behind a column as energy bolts flew past, and ran for cover together, and fought side by side, both having learned combat from training. Minyu found himself separated from in the chaos. He saw forces herding captured humans toward a side exit. They had brought transport ships, planning to take the humans to their hidden facility. Minyu's voice cut through the noise. She was fighting 3 extremists at once, trying to reach him. Then Minyu saw something that made his blood run cold. Forces had breached a secure area and were accessing computers. They were downloading the genetic database, all the research, everything. "They're stealing the data," he shouted. Heard him and understood immediately. She broke away from her fight and ran toward the computer terminals. "I can stop them." "It's too dangerous," Minyu yelled, but she was already moving. Reached the terminals and began frantically typing, trying to shut down the data transfer. Saw her and changed direction, heading straight for her. "Traitor," he screamed. "You betray your own species for human emotion." "No," said calmly, still working at the terminal. "I save my species by honoring what we should have never forgotten. Life cannot be forced. It must be chosen." Raised his weapon. Minyu was too far away. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. He saw the weapon charge, saw his finger squeeze the trigger, saw still working at the terminal, refusing to abandon her task. Then appeared from nowhere, tackling from the side. The shot went wide, hitting the wall instead. Was right behind her, disarming with brutal efficiency. "The transport ships," someone yelled. "They're trying to launch with the captured humans." Finished her work at the terminal. "The data is corrupted," she announced. "They cannot use it, but there is more." She pulled up security footage showing the Pure Line's hidden facility. Row after row of medical equipment. Holding cells. Everything they would need to force genetic extraction. And worse, they had already captured 6 humans from Earth during the council session, people who had not volunteered, who had been taken from their homes. The chamber fell silent as everyone watched the footage. Even the captured Pure Line extremists looked shocked. They had been told the facility was for voluntary donors. They had been lied to. "This is what shortcuts look like," Matriarch said, her voice heavy with sorrow. This is what we become when we abandon our principles. She turned to her guards. Shut down that facility, free the prisoners, arrest everyone involved. Held between and laughed bitterly. You're too late. We already began the extraction process. In a few months we will have proof that our way works. You will have proof of nothing, Minyu said, stepping forward. I designed the genetic tests. I know exactly what will happen. The extracted material will degrade within weeks. Any embryos created will fail. You will have tortured innocent people for nothing. He is right, added, standing beside Minyu. I have seen the data. Forced extraction has a 0% success rate. You have wasted months preparing a facility that cannot produce results. The truth seemed to hit like a physical blow. No, it has to work. Our species is dying. Then let it die with honor, Matriarch said quietly. Or let it survive through honest partnership. Those are the only choices that matter. The security forces moved in, taking the Pure Line extremists into custody. The fighting was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. The High Council had to decide not just whether to continue the Earth program, but whether to fundamentally change how thought about survival. That night, freed from immediate danger, the delegation gathered in their quarters. They were exhausted, bruised, shaken, but they were alive. What happens now? Asked. Now we wait, replied. The Council will vote tomorrow on whether to pursue formal partnership with Earth or end the program entirely. After everything we have shown them, said, how could they possibly choose to end it? Because change is frightening, answered, holding her hand. And we are asking them to change everything about how they think of themselves. Minyu and sat together, watching the alien stars through the window. Are you afraid? He asked her. Terrified, she admitted. If they vote to end the program, I will never see you again. Our laws will not allow me to stay on Earth unless. The vote took 3 days. The entire High Council debated endlessly. Should they continue seeking partnership with humans? Should they accept that their species might end rather than compromise their values? Should they try to find another solution, another species, another way? The human delegation was not allowed in the council chambers during the deliberations. They waited in their quarters, tension mounting with each passing hour. Minyu barely slept, stayed by his side, both of them knowing their future hung in the balance. On Earth, President watched the broadcasts with the rest of humanity. The whole world waited. Would this be the beginning of something unprecedented, or the end of a brief, beautiful dream? On the 3rd day, Matriarch called the human delegation back to the council chamber. The massive room was packed again, but this time the mood was different. Less hostile, more uncertain. They were tired of dying, but they were also afraid of changing. Stood at the center of the council. Her ancient face was lined with exhaustion and something else that might have been hope. We have debated for 3 days, she began. We have studied your data, reviewed your testimonies, and searched our souls for the right answer. The Pure Line showed us what we become when we abandon our principles, but fear also showed us what we become when we refuse to adapt. She paused, looking at each human in turn. Dr. Park, you have proven scientifically that there are no shortcuts to the bonds that create life, but you and your companions have proven something even more important. You have shown us that those bonds, when real, create something more valuable than just genetic material. They create purpose, meaning, hope. Minyu held his breath. Beside him, his hand trembled in his. The High Council votes to accept full partnership with humanity, announced. Not just for genetic exchange, but for cultural integration, shared governance, and mutual future building. We propose the formation of a federation of united worlds. We will not simply seek to save our species. We will seek to create a new species, born from both of ours, through willing bonds and genuine love. The chamber erupted in cheers and protests in equal measure. Some were overjoyed, others were horrified, but the decision was made. However, continued, waiting for silence, We will move slowly. No will be forced to participate. No human will be pressured. Any partnerships formed must be completely voluntary on both sides, and any children born from these unions will be citizens of both worlds, belonging to both species equally. President stood up. On behalf of Earth, I accept your proposal. We will form this federation together as equals. The next months passed in a blur of activity. Treaties were signed. Immigration policies were established. Females began applying to live on Earth, while humans volunteered to move to worlds. Not everyone was happy about it. The Humanity First movement continued protesting, and remnants of the pure line caused trouble. But slowly, steadily, the two species began building something new, and were among the first to marry. They held their ceremony on island, combining human and traditions. Hundreds attended, both species witnessing the first official union under the new Federation laws. I never thought I would find this, said during his vows, looking at with tears in his eyes. I was happy alone, but with you I learned the difference between contentment and joy. You are my joy. Spoke in her turn, her voice clear and strong. You taught me that efficiency is not the same as living, that the longest path is sometimes the right path, that love is worth any wait, any struggle, any risk. I choose you today and every day. When they kissed, half the audience cried. The other half tried to understand why crying was somehow appropriate for happy occasions. They were learning, and opened their academy 3 months later. Students of both species came to learn art, science, and the philosophy of blending different perspectives. Their first major installation, displayed in both Seoul and the capital city, showed two trees growing together, roots intertwined, branches reaching for the same sky. Art is bridge, explained to his students. It connects the head and the heart, logic and emotion, different worlds and different peoples. And took their partnership to the stars. They designed ships that neither species could have created alone, combining human intuition with mathematical precision. Their flagship vessel, named Unity, became the first ship officially registered to the Federation. We fly together now, said at the launch ceremony, not as separate peoples but as one future. Captain accepted promotion to Admiral of the Federation fleet. Commander became her second-in-command. They were careful to keep their relationship professional in public, but everyone knew. The way they looked at each other said everything words could not. I never thought I would love her, admitted one quiet evening on the bridge of their flagship. I never thought I would understand what love meant, replied, taking her hand. You taught me. But the most anticipated event was still to come. Minyu and's research had continued. 7 months after the council vote, discovered she was pregnant. It was the first natural human pregnancy, conceived through genuine love and partnership. The news spread across both worlds. Minyu and became instant celebrities, though they hated the attention. They just wanted to focus on their growing family and their work. Are you scared? Minyu asked one night, his hand on stomach where their daughter was growing. Terrified, admitted. What if something goes wrong? What if the genetic combination is unstable? What if? What if she's perfect? Minyu interrupted gently. What if she's exactly what both our species need? A living proof that different can be better. You are optimistic. I'm a scientist in love. It makes me irrational. He kissed her forehead, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Their daughter, Sira, was born healthy and beautiful. She had her mother's silver-tinted skin and her father's warm brown eyes. She cried loudly when hungry and slept peacefully in her parents' arms. She was, by all measurements, perfect. More importantly, she was viable. She could have children of her own one day. The genetic combination worked. Hope was no longer just a concept. It had a face, tiny hands, and a future. Within a year of Sira's birth, 15 more human couples announced pregnancies. Within 2 years, there were hundreds. The extinction crisis was slowly, steadily revering. But more than that, both species were changing. Humans learned efficiency and logic, improving their technology and solving problems they had struggled with for centuries. Learned human emotion and spontaneity, rediscovering the joy they had lost in their pursuit of perfection. President stepped down after 5 years, satisfied that the Federation was strong enough to survive without her. The new leader was chosen through joint election, half human votes, half. The winner was a surprising choice, the original ambassador who had first come to Earth asking for help. "I never thought I would lead a government," admitted during her inauguration speech. "I came to your world desperate and afraid, asking for something we had no right to ask. You could have refused. You could have exploited our weakness. Instead, you taught us that the strongest bonds are built on equality, trust, and genuine affection." She looked out at the crowd, human and faces mixed together. "My people nearly destroyed themselves pursuing shortcuts. We thought we could engineer perfection, control our destiny, eliminate the messy complications of natural life. We were wrong. Life is messy. Love is complicated. Growth is slow. But these are not weaknesses. They are the very things that make existence worthwhile." 10 years after first contact, the Federation had grown to include 5 worlds. Humans lived on planets, lived on Earth. Children of both species, and increasingly children of mixed heritage, played together in schools designed for all of them. Minyu and watched their daughter Sira prepare for her first day at one of these schools. She was excited, chattering about the friends she would make and the things she would learn. She didn't see herself as different. To her, having a human father and a mother was just normal. "Do you ever think about how impossible this seemed?" asked Minyu. "Every day," he replied. 10 years ago we were strangers from different worlds. Your people were dying, my people were suspicious. Now look at us." They looked out at their neighborhood. Human and families lived side by side. Children ran through the streets, all of them just children, not divided by species. Community gardens mixed earth plants with crops. The local restaurant served both cuisines. "We built this," said softly, "not through force, not through shortcuts, through patience, trust, and choosing each other every single day." "That's the thing about real bonds," Minyu said, pulling her close. "They take time, they take effort, but they last. Shortcuts crumble. What we built will endure." And visited them that evening, their own children in tow. And came later, bringing a gift they had created together. A sculpture showing 2 hands clasped, one human, one merged into a single form. "For the couple who proved it could work," said with a grin. And called from their ship orbiting Jupiter. They had just discovered a new world suitable for colonization. Admiral and Commander sent a message of congratulations. President announced the Federation was officially recognizing the anniversary of first contact as Unity Day, a holiday for all member worlds. That night Minyu stood on his balcony looking at the stars. Somewhere up there, both Earth and the orbited distant suns. Both worlds had faced extinction in their own ways. Both had been saved not by technology or force, but by choosing the hard path, the long path, the right path. Joined him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "About how your people came here desperate, asking for our DNA. How it would have been so easy to just take it by force or give it without meaning. How either choice would have failed." "Because there are no shortcuts," said. "No shortcuts to trust," Minyu agreed. "No shortcuts to love, no shortcuts to building something real." They stood together in the quiet night, 2 people from different worlds who had chosen each other, who had proven that the hardest path was worth walking. Below them, their daughter slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where human and was just one thing, one people, one hope. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder was this: 2 dying species had found each other and chosen to save each other through the simple, difficult act of building genuine bonds. No force, no tricks, no shortcuts. Just patience, trust, and love that grew stronger with every passing day. And that made all the difference.